reaction on water with oxygen 18 that generates fluorine 18 that you then chemically separate. It has a half-life of about 2 hours. So you have time to do that quickly. Put it on an airplane, fly it from Madison, Wisconsin, where it was produced, down to Argonne, on the small airstrip down there. Put it in the ion source and then accelerate the beams for experiments. That works for long-lived nuclei, but as I said, not for so many. The in-flight method, again, works this way. You produce it in, for example, lithium. You have a lithium-7 beam on deuterium, and it breaks up into helium-3 and helium-6. You're interested in the helium-6. It comes out of the gas target here. Again, gets transported in the beamline. One tries as well as one can to separate it from the primary lithium-7 beam by varying. You focus it, you rebunch it, you mass separate it, and you end up, instead of having 3 times 10 to the 11 particles of the lithium-7, you end up having about 10,000 particles per second of helium-6. But that is just enough that you can do experiments with them secondarily. So that method can actually, we went through a couple of years ago and see how many beams can we in principle make with this. And it's quite a lot. You see here again, we have the chart of the nuclei, we have the stables here in the middle. But on both sides here, we can make a lot of these beams with this method here, using these various reactions. It's only a very small subset of that we have used up to now, because it typically takes quite a while, 3 or 4 experiments before you have developed a new beam. But it can be done. So let me now turn to the Caribou upgrade, which again I said is a Californium fission source. It's a natural source of very neutron-rich nuclei. If you take 1 curie, that's 3 times 7 times 10 to the 10th disintegrations per second. Now, unfortunately, only 3% of those goes into fission. The rest is alpha particles. But those 3% still 1 times 10 to the 9 fissions per second. That produces 2 fragments. So you can capture one of them, you can stop it in a gas cell, cool it and mass select, and then you can that way produce low energy beams for example, very precise mass measurements in the pinning trap. You can do decay studies, beta gamma decay studies, or we can also do, eventually we'll be able to do laser spectroscopy on these ions. The other thing you can do is to put them into an ECR source and do charge breeding from the 1+ state that they naturally come out into a higher charge state. And that means you can effectively accelerate them in the accelerator. And this way you actually produce very precise beams. They have the same emittance and quality as a normal stable beam would have. Accelerate well an Atlas accelerator. You can do these various studies. A Coulomb excitation, I think, would be a big endeavor. And transfer reactions, as I will talk about. That's where the Helios spectrometer comes in. This is just some of the Caribou components. So you have this very strong source. Now, as I said, there's a lot of fission. So each fission usually produces 2 to 3, I think it's 3 neutrons for Californium. So you have a lot of neutrons coming out of there, and therefore you need a lot of shielding around it, otherwise the radiation levels get too high. So you put it near the entrance of this gas catcher, which is something that has really been perfected at Argonne due to Guy-Savart. You put it into the gas catcher, they get stuck down in the gas cell and come out through a nozzle here and get accelerated out. And it cooled in this RFQ gas cooler and then sent into a mass separator here. So you can pick out by putting in slips here a certain mass or several masses, I'm sure. And then you transport it into the ion source here that we already have available. And there you strip electrons off the ions and get a higher charge state. Now the gas cell, as I said, has really been perfected at Argonne by Guy-Savart. This is sort of schematic of the gas cell. So you have ions coming in here. Then you have some DC potentials that once they are in a 1+ state, they will get pushed this direction. You also have the gas flowing out, so you have some So only this is meant to illustrate that only ions that end up in this area will come out on the NAR spectrum. Now you put RF structures here on the walls, on the cone, sorry. So that means that now ions that get close to this cone here will not stick to it. They will get repelled off. And so that increases the efficiency. You get more of the ions through. And then the final step really was to put this RF structure on the whole body of the gas cell. And this is meant to illustrate that any ion that comes into the gas basically gets pushed out. That's not quite true, because this is the efficiency of the gas cell as a function of the incident ion rate. So we had quite a lot of fission fractions coming in, up near 10 to the 9, 10 to the 8, 10 to the 9. And this shows the efficient. These are measurements that have been carried out. Shows the efficient as a function of incident ions. And we'll be operating here, so it may be something like 20% efficient to get the ions out. And that's a very important thing, because the EFRI facility will use the same technology, and the efficiency, of course, is important for how strong beams you can make. This has become a whole cottage industry at Argonne by Guy Savard. So he's now been through, I don't know how many, 5 or 6 different gas cell developments, and we still have more coming. We have the one for Caribou that is being commissioned right now. One is being built for Texas A&M. One is being built for Ganil, the laboratory in France. One is being built for Dubna, and I think there's one more that I didn't get on the list. So this is going on and putting a lot of load on our engineering staff. Anyway, so to complete the picture, these are sort of the full range of ions we will be able to have at Argonne. These are the fission fragments. When californium fissions preferential with the heavy fragment and the light fragment. And you see here the intensities of these heavy fragment and light fragment. And then as you go away from these peaks, of course you get lower intensities. Fortunately, right here we have tin 132, which is a doubly magic nucleus. It means that both the neutron shells and the proton shells have a large energy gap. So this is especially interesting to study. And there's enough intensity in this area that we will be able to carry out experiments right there. And that is on the plan. These are some of the beam intensities for exotic nuclei, zirconium 104, barium 143, and so on. Here are the tins, 130, 132. And you see this is what will come out at the low energy beam area. But then you have to strip or charge group the ions, which has a certain efficiency. So this is what we expect, maybe 14,000 a second as we get out to the experimental area. But that is usable. Now, as I said, for the low energy ions that we don't accelerate, there's a lot of interesting stuff to be done. We have the Canadian painting trap that is able, by measuring the cyclotron frequency, is able to measure masses very, very accurately with an accuracy of 10 to the minus 8 or something like that. And this is work they have done. These are nuclei they have already studied with a much weaker source. These are some they're planning to study. And with the Caribou, they can go further out. And as I said, in some years, you will have the EFRIP at Michigan State University. This is a sketch of the facility. It's along driver Linac, and that makes light ions, heavy ions. You make in-flight beams in the target here, slow down and reaccelerate, or you use the in-flight beams directly for experiments. So that is coming in the future. So let me get back to transfer reactions. So why are we interested in transfer reactions? First of all, as Alan and I just talked about when we looked at the tandem accelerator downstairs. Now there were tandem accelerators like that, or maybe a little larger, in many, many universities in the US, Europe, and other places. And the knowledge we have about nuclei is close to the line of stability. A lot of the knowledge of the spectroscopy of these nuclei were gained by such